Today I wanted to talk to you about a next step of success that's vitally important. It opens doors wherever you go, no matter where you are. One of the questions that I get from a lot of folks, even people that I'm working with privately, like folks in our TEM groups, which you've heard me talk about before, is how do I get from here to there if I don't know how I'm going to do it? And that's a really big question, because we're programmed with this idea from little kids that we really shouldn't do something if we don't know how we're going to do it. And there's a problem with this, a major problem. One is it keeps people at levels beneath their capability all of their life. Part of the way that we're educated around the world, by the way, is that we have to go get this education so that we know how to do something, and then we can step into doing it if somebody else agrees that we know how to do it. And I understand that from a job perspective. But quite frankly, our powers are so great and they're so fantastic and so wonderful that people don't really consider that when we came here to this planet, however that was, we didn't know how to do anything. And there was no books, there was no library, there was no internet. There was no seeking stored knowledge to figure out how is it that we're going to actually do things. So what is it that allowed us to create all these wonderful things that humankind created throughout the millennia? Like, how did this stuff even get here? Well, if we understand a couple of basic principles, then I'll explain what this little gift is that you can do so that you can implement it into your life. Also, first of all, let's understand again that the only thing that was here on this planet was the raw materials to create everything that we've actually created. Beyond that, we just had to live within that, kind of like the way animals do. But something different separated us from the animals, and that was our ability to see within our imagination something that did not yet exist in the physical. That's how everything that we got was created, whether you're talking about your phone or the computer or whatever way you're listening to me right now, to the clothes that you're wearing. Everything. First was an idea in a person's mind. They didn't go to school for the idea. They didn't study for the idea. The idea came to them. And then their job was to take the materials of the world and figure, how do I manufacture this thing that's in my mind that I only have a picture of with what I see around me, in my world. And through trial and error, that's how everything was created. We make a huge mistake pointing to, you have to learn how to do all of these things through book knowledge or teacher knowledge in every scenario. Now, I think that there's definitely places in society where that is a great thing and that we should study and that we should learn and we should do all of those things. But when it comes to your life and the direction that you're going to live for your life and what you're going to actually create for yourself, we want to start with the idea that we're great. We already talked about that. We're great because we're great. That's what we are. And when we accept that, something different changes inside of us. We start thinking greater thoughts beyond the physical level that we find ourselves, the reality that we find ourselves in. And it doesn't even need to be great as in using that language, because when I started, I was a high school dropout. I had no money. I was broke. I went bankrupt. We were on food stamps. I had a very, very low skill job. And I would not say that I was great. If you'd asked me that, that would not be the language that I used. But what I did know was that I was not supposed to be where I was for the rest of my life. I knew that I was there because of choices that I made. But I also knew that this is not where I was supposed to stay. Now, I didn't know how to get out. I did not know how to get out. And I've talked about that on the podcast many times. But I did know that there was something different for me. And I've never met a person that doesn't have that in them at some place. Now, not everybody's willing to admit that to other people because in some circles, people will make you look foolish for thinking something like that. In some societies, in some cultures, people will really look down on somebody that thinks that they want to do something different than anything around them. They'll even get labeled and judged. You're too good. Do you think you're too good for everybody? Isn't this good enough for you? There's all kinds of derogatory language that goes along with that kind of an idea. But the truth is that it has nothing to do with being down on what other people choose for their life and how they choose to live, because we don't know what's going on in anybody else's mind. We only know what's going on in our mind. And I know something for a fact. You would not be watching me today or listening to me today if there wasn't something else that you wanted in life. So let's just start with that. Forget everybody else for a moment. You're great, and you know you're great. You may not know exactly what to do with it yet, or you may be doing something really wonderful with it now, but you're not sure how high that you can go. Now, what does that do? It puts us in the reality that we're currently experiencing. When I started, I was on a forklift in the back of a truck, not making enough money to take care of my family. It was not a good reality. And I knew that I wanted out. I wanted out of that reality. So ask yourself, what do you know about your reality right now? Where are you? Are you in a job? Do you have a business? Do you have a thriving business? Are you ready to go to the next level? Do you want to go to 8, 9, 10 figures in your business? But you're not exactly sure how to get there. My first recommendation is this: get off the idea of having to know how to get there. Let's talk about the process that actually gets you there. So the first one is having some idea of where you want to go. All kinds of books have been written that said, don't focus on how you're going to get there. Focus on where you want to land when you get there. In other words, what would the reality be in the new house, in the new car, in the new business? Think about what it would be like to be in that situation, to be living that life, to be living your greatest life right now. Because the one thing that you can do to make that the starting point for reality is to engage your imagination. Your imagination is the first stage of creation insofar as you're concerned. But there's something wonderful about an imagination that most people don't get. Your imagination is receiving information for the universe. And most people will not, or even I would go as far as to say cannot, really imagine themselves doing something that they're not capable of doing. And here's something even cooler than that. That is, the more that you imagine yourself doing something that you don't yet do, and you begin to step into that life, the bigger your imagination gets. As far as we know, it has no limits. If you're in this lifetime, if you're alive, whatever it is that you truly imagine and you truly desire, you're imagining it and desiring it because you're already capable of doing it. We want to make that as clear and as clean as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to have an idea of the direction that you want to go. That's where we set goals for ourselves, because a goal gives our life direction. And the truth is that everybody sets goals, whether they're intentional or unintentional. Everybody's moving towards something. There's no question about it. But given all that, and given the state of consciousness that you're in, what is the next step that you need to take in order to accomplish what you want? Here's what it is. Ask. Ask. Now, let me explain this. When I was stuck the first time in the forklift, I asked God for help. Now, God was not my first choice. I'll tell you that right now. Not that I didn't believe in God, but I didn't think you could ask God, right? And again, you could use God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. It's a higher intelligence beyond ourselves. There's no question about that. But I asked people that were around me. I did not see, there were so many things I didn't know. I did not know that when you ask people about how to get ahead that have not actually gotten ahead themselves, it's a huge error, because they can't tell you. Right? They may be great people. They may be wonderful people. They may be family members, and they may have opinions, but they can't tell you how to get someplace they haven't gotten. So that's important to know. I didn't know that. And because I didn't know that, I asked a lot of people that were around me, and I got really, really terrible advice as to what I was supposed to do. Had I followed their advice, I would not be where I am today. A matter of fact, had I followed their advice, I would still be riding a forklift in a warehouse somewhere, because their advice was to stay put, work as hard as I can, work as much overtime as I can. Literally, that was their advice to me. There was no getting out of where I was in their mind. That was it. So one day, after a really bad day, I switched asking people and I asked God. And I said, show me how to get out of here. I'll do whatever it takes. Show me. And then the moment that I asked, a door opened, a door of opportunity. And the first door of opportunity was to change something inside of me, which I thought was weird. Okay. I'm being totally transparent with you. I didn't understand how changing anything inside of myself was going to change the situation that I was in. I was convinced I needed another situation to change the situation that I was in. But what I didn't realize is that I couldn't attract another situation until I changed my inside perspective in life. When I changed that, bam, a door opened. Okay. And then from there, I was like, oh, so this works to some degree. And from that point on, I kept asking and asking and asking, whether it was God or anybody else that could give me advice to go to the direction that I wanted to go, or anything that I wanted. And as time went by, I got better at it. As time went by, I had successful people teach me how to ask, make suggestions on how to ask. But the key is that you already have an enormous power that will open any door anywhere, and it's your ability to ask. And you know something that's really weird about this that I've thought about over and over again for a long time? I've experienced this with private clients, is that most of us are taught it's not okay to ask in life. We get so much negative information about asking other people for things. We get bad information about asking God for things, asking for things that the perception is that people think that we don't deserve. You name it. We get a lot of negative information about asking. And the truth is, it's probably one of the most powerful things that we could ever do. I mean, it's written, biblically, ask and it will be given, right? It's based, so that's a spiritual law. If you look at it from a universal law, it's based on the law of cause and effect. Ask and you will receive. So I could sit here and tell you story after story after story of how I have gone through my life needing something, wanting something, desiring something, and then stepping into the idea of asking for it, even when you don't know who to ask. I have this wonderful story back in 2014 when I first moved to the Charlotte, North Carolina area. I didn't know anybody here. We came here with our team. Some of them got here before we did at the time, and we were going to get an office, which we did. We got the office before we actually lived here. But one of the interesting things was that we didn't want to buy a house right off. We wanted to get to know the area. So we wanted to rent a really nice house. Couldn't find one. Went to real estate agents. They couldn't find one. Looked on the internet. We couldn't find one. So a bunch of us got together and we decided that we were going to split up in different really nice neighborhoods and start knocking on doors and asking, say, listen, we're new to the area. We're here expanding our business and we're looking for a house to rent. Do you know anybody that was renting a house? And it was that process that got me into my first house. We met somebody by knocking on the door. They said yes. They called somebody. They gave us a phone number. We went and saw a house. It was a great house. We rented the house. But I have thousands of stories, mine and other people's. Once you start asking, but then the problem is that people will go, well, who do you ask? Who is it that you ask? You start with the group of people that are around you, okay? And then you look for a door that's actually going to open, right? Now, you might say, but you just said you asked people around you the first time and nothing happened. Yes, because what I didn't know was that I couldn't ask for something more from people that had less. In other words, those people couldn't help me. But what was fascinating was that when I changed me as the first process in asking, I was awakened to somebody that was in my life that I did not ask, that actually was at more of advantage than I was. And they were able to give me advice that I could advance immediately. And that's really how my income tripled in 30 days when I first changed. But if you go back and you listen to that story in the podcast, that's exactly how it happened. But I would have not have asked that person in the beginning. I didn't ask that person. It never even occurred to me to even talk to this person about what it is that I wanted or the things that I was actually trying to do in my life. Now, when I ask, I think to myself, who do we know that would know somebody to help us get what it is that we're looking for? So the question's just more specific. Back in the day when I didn't know, I was like, what do I do now? It was a very unempowered position to be in. And of course, they couldn't tell me what it was. But when the question gets more specific and you understand, go to the people, right? Go to the people that are around you and ask specifically. Now, here's something that's true. A lot of people are going to tell you no, or they're going to tell you that they don't know. That's okay. But I promise you this, there is somebody in your life or will be brought to your life the moment you start asking. The door will open because the door, whatever the door is for you to go to the next stage of what you want, I don't care what it is in your life. It could be sales, it could be marketing, it could be building a team, it could be expanding your company, it could be going from being an employee to starting a business. No matter what you need, you're close to someone who knows someone or has some knowledge that will allow you to take the next step. And you keep asking, and then the next step, and the next step, and the next step. See, we're never without any good thing. Everything that we desire is so close to us based on the law of polarity that when a person thinks about it, they think that cannot be true. And here's what it states. Anything that you need or desire is already here. And not only is it already here, but it's as close to you as your breath. But if you don't understand that law, you don't know it, right? And what happens is you look at your reality basically through your past. We want to start looking at it through our future. Ask and it will be given was great advice. Follow it. It'll completely change your life.